folks, we are here on Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. With members of the Floyd family and other families that have been affected by police violence. I want folks to introduce themselves from my right. We're going to come all the way across. Go right ahead.
My name is Elisa Finley. I am the sister of both Jab, who was shot and killed on September 6, 2018 in Dallas, Texas.
I am Andre Locke, the father of Amir Locke, who was killed in Minneapolis on February the 2nd, 2022.
My name is Karen Wells, and I am the mother of Amir Locke.
My name is Philonus Floyd. I'm the brother of George Floyd, and he was murdered on May 25th, 2020.
My name is Keita Floyd. I am the wife of Philonus Floyd.
You guys step to my side, let me see you.
My name is Tiffany Hall, and I'm the niece of George Floyd.
Attorney Ben Crump, attorney for the family of George Floyd.
I'm Doc.
And the family of Botham Jean, the family of Amir Locke, the family of Terrence Purchase, and others who are at the White House today for the momentous occasion of the executive order.
I'm Dr. Tiffany Crutcher. I am the twin sister of Terrence Crutcher, who was killed on September 16, 2016 in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
It is good to see all of you here. I had to say that because unfortunately y'all are members of what many call a fraternity or sorority that folks don't want to be a part of. This is the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd, and unfortunately, there are way too many of these cases. I've interviewed far too many family members. There were folks who were there in the room interviewed as well. Just want to get your thoughts first off on the executive order, on the signing. Clearly, we all wanted the George Floyd Justice Act to be signed into law. That didn't happen. Frankly, Republicans in the Senate didn't do their job. But just your immediate assessment of the executive order and what it means for the black community, what it means for law enforcement, what it means for this country. Anyone can start.
Go ahead, Ben.
It's for you.
You know, I think as Attorney Monique Presley and I talked about, this incremental progress, and you have to continue to try to make progress any way you can. The president is extremely limited by what he can do based on our Constitution. He did what he could do today, and I think it was important, especially Roland Martin, to have that law enforcement accountability database where at least for the first time we have a governmental entity keeping track of police misconduct. And now we have to continue to look to the United States Senate to finally give us the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And we have to remember, this is not going to be easy. We haven't had meaningful police reform since President Lyndon Baines Johnson Great Society legislation in the 60s. It was after Rodney King was brutalized in 1988. They tried to get police reform. It didn't happen. After Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, hands up, don't shoot. They tried to get police reform. It didn't happen. And then after George Floyd was tragically tortured to death, we were optimistic as ever. But yet again, politics over people reared its ugly head. And that's why we have to continue to fight. And this was a first step, I believe, Scott Bolden.
Anyone else?
You know, I'll just jump in and say, you know, we appreciate the gesture. We appreciate it is historic to be there with so many family members who truly understand your pain and the purpose to continue to push. We've talked and these families, we've been to Capitol Hill time and time again, you know, starting in 2016, you know, I was lobbying, I was advocating for, you know, Congress to act. And I believe that if they would have acted back then, George Floyd would still be alive, Breonna Taylor would still be alive. But we know that our work is not finished. We know that we need for the House and the Senate to pass some meaningful and purposeful legislation like abolishing qualified immunity, changing the use of force standard in order for us to get some true accountability all the way down to the local level to prevent what happened to Terrence and Botham Jean and George Floyd from happening again. So we hope that this moment will be a trickle-down effect, and hopefully state lawmakers will use this as a model and adopt some of these policies so this can stop.
First of all, I'd just like to thank President Biden for pulling forth an effort like this. It's a bittersweet moment, but we're stepping in the right direction. Like I said, my brother was murdered a while back, 2 years ago, but this is the day that, his remembrance. So I clearly want to say this. All these families who screamed and mourned for their loved ones, they were in there. People were watching their television, and they've been waiting on this George Floyd Policing Act to be passed. It still hasn't been passed, but it's the law of the land right now. So we got to keep pushing. We got to keep fighting, because we all here, Alyssa, Buddy, Emil Locke's mom, Aaron, and Terrence Crutcher, and Roland, thank you for giving us this chance. And I got my wife and my niece here with me. So, this is a moment in a lifetime that you really don't never get a chance to see something like this. It's a blessing right now. Thank you.
Amen.
Again, I am Andre Locke, Buddy, Amir Locke's father, and it was a historic moment for each of us, an historic moment for each of us to be there to experience the signing of the federal police reform. It's a start. It has to start somewhere, and justice will prevail. God has his hand all over this. No matter what takes place, things are happening behind the scenes that whatever door God opens, no man can shut, or woman. Amen. So things are happening, and things will continue to happen with people like yourself, Roland Martin, that stand out and that gives us a voice, and that we're able to speak up and speak out about injustice. So thank you for allowing us that opportunity, and thank you for being who you are. We truly appreciate it. And for my son Amir, you brought us all together. For George Floyd, you brought us all together. For your brother, Malcolm, you guys brought us all together. For your brother, for your twin, for Terrence Fletcher, you brought us all together. We have opportunity to change things ourselves, and it starts within, and it happens in our own communities as well. So we're going to stop pointing the fingers, and we're going to get out and make things happen.
All right.
And one of the things that, look, the reality is, the officer who shot and killed Botham Jean is in prison. Derek Chauvin is in prison. But the reality is, then you have those officers who we know did wrong, who killed your brother, who's trained now, didn't go to jail, but is training other officers, the officers who killed Amir Locke. I mean, and so that's also part of the frustration, because folks want to see justice, and unfortunately, we're still dealing with a system that still gives police officers so much of the benefit of the doubt.
I'd like to respond to that. It's so many different case laws that people of color that we don't know about in our communities until something happens to one of our loved ones. And the case Graham versus Connor was helping to protect police officers, to give them a shield to kill and to get away with it. So we should find a way, and we can get back to the Supreme Court, and we can find a way to change the language of Graham versus Connor, where it protects the officers as well as the civilians. So this way they won't only look at it through the eyes of the officers, but they can also look at it through the eyes of the victim. In our son's case, who was sleeping. So
I would just say this to what Andre Locke said. Graham v. Connor and Gardner v. Tennessee, which Attorney Bolden and Attorney Presley know all too well, Roland. It was the Supreme Court creating law, judicial law of qualified immunity. And then it was ratified by the Congress. And it has been the law of the land. It's the reason why Jacob Blake killers were not charged. The reason why they can't bring a civil suit. This qualified immunity is probably the worst law I can think of, because what it encourages police officers to do is not be prudent, to be unreasonable, and it doesn't matter. We got a law that'll protect you. And so that's why we still have work yet to do until Congress, Philonis and y'all, will finally pass this Justice and Policing Act to say qualified immunity is not good for anybody. They will keep getting away with murder.
No, just whatever you want to say.
No, I definitely echo what everyone here is saying. It is definitely a bittersweet moment. For me, I look at it as it's a step in the right direction for the president signing the executive order. But it's just a start. We still have a long way to go. Like everyone said, we still need the Justice and Policing Act passed, because that's the only way African Americans can feel a bit safe in America. Right now, we're not safe. Right now, I feel like they're hunting us, and we need the laws to be on our side.
When I talked to Senator Cory Booker, talked to Senator Coons at the White House, what I said to both of them is, look, the election is in November. I said, there's nothing that precludes the Senate from taking this up again and trying to actually pass it. One of the things that I said in December when Senator Tim Scott went on Face the Nation, and I just want y'all to understand it. Senator Tim Scott went on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan, and he blamed Democrats for, in his mind, trying to defund the police by tying changes in law to them receiving funding. And I found that to be real interesting, because when Michael Harriot was at the Root, he actually wrote a piece the previous year in 2020 where Senator Tim Scott literally had the exact same mechanism in his law. And he wrote a piece that was called In Loving Memory of Tim Scott. Now, back in this was actually September, it wasn't December. So Senator Tim Scott was very vocal with me, texting back and forth with regards to it falling apart. Yet when I sent him that story and I asked him point blank, I said, if Dems want to defund the cops by cutting funds, please explain why you previously wanted to do the same. How can you say it's a bridge too far when what you now say is bad is what your own deputy chief of staff says was needed? Here is what Michael Harriot published today. And I asked him that question on September 30th, on October 27th, on January 19th. The very same thing. I even said, Senator Scott, it's been 2.5 months since I asked you to explain the difference between what you accused Dems of doing on the Floyd bill and what you proposed last year. Why have you and your staff gone silent on your own proposal? What's the difference? Still no response. I think what the president should do, the president should ask all of you to come back to the White House, invite those Republicans, and say, sit across the table and let's put this bill back on track. Your thoughts?
If I could just jump in, and I agree with you, because we met with Senator Scott and we met with Senator Graham, and we sat across the table from them, and, you know, they misled us. You know, they told us that we're going to get something done. And when it fell apart, we got a call from Senator Booker, you know, to express his disappointment. But we didn't get a call from Senator Scott. We didn't. I mean, I called the office and, you know, they told me, oh, he's busy right now. I said, I don't care if he's busy. He made promises to us, and he did not keep those promises. And so he's doing what's politically expedient. And he said, hey, it's just dead, it's just dead. And what we expressed to him, Alyssa and I, we told him our brothers are dead. That's what's dead, and we are tired of you playing politics with our you know, with our loved ones. We are tired of you negotiating if we live or die. And so we haven't heard from him either since that meeting and since it died. And so it's really disingenuous. It's disappointing and it's unfortunate. But again, I think you're right. We need to get back to the table and figure out how we make this work before the midterms.
I agree. I was going to actually say, the same thing that Tiffany just said. One of the things that I'd like to really touch in on is that Roland has nightmares, and for us to come to the White House and always get a Band-Aid, that's unfortunate for us because we go right back and we're going through the same things over and over again. And at this point, we're just asking for closure. And one step ahead will be passing the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Right.
I just really think, again, if the White House doesn't demand it, I just personally think that that's something that the families should say to this president. Call that meeting at the White House. Ask them to come to the White House and then see if they actually show up. You got people, Senator Scott's running for re-election. You got other people running for re-election. And you're right. He made all those promises. And the Republicans kept saying, and I heard Senator Lindsey Graham say, we are going to get this done. And they didn't.
We don't want a watered-down bill. We don't want a watered-down bill. We want you to look at everything that we're asking you to do because it's protecting our children, our children's children. This is our future. And so we're just fed up and we're just asking for some type of closure.
And I will say I was able to speak with the brother of Walter Scott, Anthony Scott, who was very disappointed out of South Carolina with Senator Scott, who said that he was going to get this done. And so, we do need to, hold him accountable for his lack of action and his lack of disrespect to the families. He could have at least had the common courtesy to say, hey, this is where we are and this is why. But you went and you lied and said that it was the Dems' fault and that the Dems can't have everything they want. Again, this is not about politics. Right. This is about if we live or die. And so...
So that fell apart in September, and none of you heard from Senator Tim Scott or Senator Lindsey Graham or the Republicans.
No, and that same weekend I ran into Senator Manchin and, tied him down and I said, hey, what do you think about this? He told me he would go and meet with them and that he believed that this should happen and hadn't heard from him either.
Same thing. He wanted to talk about socks and what kind of socks he had on and things like that when he should have been talking about the laws and changing the things that's going on. I was on your show a while back and we was talking about the George Floyd Policing Act, how it needed to be passed. We're still talking about it 2 years later and we still haven't gotten it passed. It was Lindsey Graham and Timothy Eugene Scott. They sat there, they said, hey, we're going to get this done. Everybody was in there, Miss Carr, Miss Crutcher, Miss Alyssa, everybody representing their families. And we're still here today fighting for these same rights all over again. Same thing. It never stopped. We're still here doing the same thing, and we're speaking to Roland about the same issues every time we come down here.
I ran to a white couple from Texas a little bit earlier, and we were talking about, and they asked me the question, do I think a lot has changed since the death of George Floyd? Then they asked me, what do you think people should be doing? And in every single case of all of you dealt with, there were people who were protesting, there were people who were out there, people, and of course when George Floyd was killed, people all over the world. And the thing that I said to that white couple, what I said to them was, I said, part of the problem is all of those people who were out there went back home. Yeah. That protesting in the aftermath of his death, and the death of Terrence, and the death of Amir, and the death of both of John, and the death of John Crawford III, and the death of Michael Brown, and the death of, I've had to interview the death of Sandra Bland. I can go on and on and on. Folk went back home. We also need all of those people, all the people who are black, people who are not black, to be putting pressure here.
That's right.
Imagine if all of a sudden they looked up and 10 or 20,000 descended upon Capitol Hill when they were here saying we're going to go to all 435 House offices, all 100 Senate offices. And so part of this is also getting the public to understand that they have to stay engaged, because if you study the Black Freedom Movement, some call it the Civil Rights Movement, that thing wasn't just the protest in Birmingham or in Selma. It was a constant state of pressure.
That's right.
That's the thing. We go home and we get comfortable. And we forget until there's another victim. And we shouldn't have to wait for another victim for us to remember that we need to act. if we did something before, if we applied all the pressure, like everyone that came out to protest for George Floyd, if everyone applied pressure to their senators, to their government, maybe Amira Locke would still be alive right now. So it's on all of us. But I personally think Tim Scott needs to be held accountable, because I've had several meetings with Tim Scott from when President Trump was in office. I met with him, we spoke over the phone, several meetings, and still nothing. So he has a lot of explaining to do. He needs to come to the table and speak to all these families who are still grieving for their loved ones.
Go ahead. While y'all talking, I'm seeing the text. Go ahead.
Accountability.
Tell him Elisa said it high.
Accountability. Why is there such a lack of accountability all around the country? With police, with the politicians. No one wants to be accountable for their own actions. All we're just saying is be accountable, admit that you were wrong, and change it. Because if it happens to their children, the laws will change immediately. Immediately. The same way with drugs. When crack cocaine hit the inner cities, it was okay. But when it hit the suburbs, it was such a windfall. Everybody went crazy. Then it was the war on drugs all of a sudden. So it shouldn't have to happen that way. We shouldn't have to humanize our children or our brothers or our family members.
Yeah, and I just want to say that the president said, I just want to quote that public trust is the foundation of public safety. And that's what we have to remember. You know, it's not us against them. You know, they need the public, you know, to be engaged in this process. But I want to say I'm inspired by seeing all of these families who came in spite of their pain, in spite of their trauma, who came together, and we're just simply a small representation of so many people who are out there whose names we'll never know, as Attorney Crump says. We'll never know. And so we're speaking out for you. If you're listening, this moment was for you today. And know that you're not alone. And we're going to keep fighting regardless. And I remember the last words of my brother that he spoke to me. God is going to get the glory out of my life. And I believe that this moment today, this historic moment, is living proof. And so I just want to say I love you all, and we're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep fighting together.
Amen. The last thing, what do y'all have to say to all of these corporations that made pronouncements in the wake of the death of your loved ones, but especially since George Floyd, to the tune of $30 to $50 billion? Folks made all kind of announcements that we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and very little has been done. What do you have to say to those CEOs and those boards of directors, including black folks who work at a lot of these companies, where they have not done anything except send those press releases out?
As Amir Locke's mother, I want to say to not only those companies, but to the politicians across the board, if you are not coming down into our communities and willing to dig your hands down in the soil and get your hands dirty, we're not voting for you. We're going to be done with voting for the lesser of two evils. Just because you look like me don't mean that you're for me. So at the end of the day, we're done. We're not begging. We're not asking. We are telling you, as a police officer, you chose to become a police officer. It is an occupation. You are not God. You are not above the law. You do not have the right to take anybody's life just because you feel intimate danger. Obviously, all of the families here, our loved ones felt intimate danger as soon as they saw you approach them with your weapon. I'm disappointed. I don't believe anything. You can say anything, you can write down anything, but until you show me and back it up with your actions, I'm just going to sit around, but I'm not going to be quiet.
And these corporate organizations, they have a responsibility. Once you know, you owe. It's not enough to just know and be knowledgeable and aware, but once you know, you owe, and you have to act. And all the money that you promised, we need that money shifting to the ground and to these family foundations and organizations who's doing the work every single day. If you care about public safety and community safety, we need an injection of money on the ground so we can find alternatives to policing, so we can invest in mental health resources and all of the social services that our community has been lacking because resources have been stifled by these legislatures into their pet projects. But if you care about public safety, shift the capital to the ground and do what you say you're going to do. That's what a commitment is. That's what a commitment to racial equity is, acting and not just knowing.
Especially all those companies that promise economic vitalization.
That's right.
Of Black Wall Street and Tulsa a year
that's
ago.
another
Go ahead.
story.
Final comments, go ahead.
All these companies that all here made all these pledges, I want y'all to know that they can't continue to make laws for the elite and the chosen. They have to make it for the people. And if you all want to express interest in us, please help us. Help us get out and change these laws. I'm right here with my institution, the Philonis and Keita Floyd Institution for Social Change. I'm turning my pain into purpose.
Right.
And I'm with all these other families here. We all going through the same thing. We wake up every day and we miss our loved one. Yes. We know we can't get them back. And we searching for accountability because justice is getting our loved one back. And we know we can't get that. It's always an empty chair at the table. So all you people who stood up and said Black Lives Matter, show it to me.
That's right.
That's the only way to prove it. Show it to me.
And I see with your shirt that's a lion because he's a graduate of Jack Yates High School. Jack Yates Lions. I'm a graduate as well. Yeah, I peeped that. Don't trust me. I saw it.
Jack Yates, baby.
That's right.
The yard.
That's right.
To the corporations, shame on you. Shame on you. The time is now for change, and you have an opportunity to make a difference. You actually have an opportunity to make a difference, and we look forward to that happening. We're not asking you to. When I say that we look forward to it happening, is because it's already taking place. Things are already happening behind closed doors. There's a reason that we're all here. There's a reason that we were all called here. It wasn't a mistake that we ended up being on Roland Martin's show. So everything is supposed to be the way that it is. We truly appreciate it, and things will change.
Well, do understand, I've interviewed way too many family members, and one of the reasons why I launched this show, I launched the Black Star Network, was because I did not want to have to depend upon mainstream media to cover our story. So do understand that we will continue to do that. We'll continue to be on the ground. We'll continue to remember and hold politicians accountable to do what they say they were going to do. And trust me, the corporations that have made these promises, we also going to be calling out each one of them as well and holding them accountable. Because that's what we're supposed to do. Dr. King specifically called on black media to maintain a sense of militancy and not fall for the conservative, and that's really what we do. And so we appreciate y'all joining us, talking with us. Good to see all of you, and we're going to keep giving them hell.
Yes.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you so
Thanks
much for having us.
Welcome you to the launch of the Mass Poor People's Low Wage Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C., June 18, 2022.
We are a new, unsettling force, and we are powerful. New, unsettling force, and we are here.
We're rising up to demonstrate the compelling power that we, poor and low-income people, have to reconstruct society from the bottom up.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
Because we know that there is no scarcity in this land. The only scarcity is the moral will to do what's right.
Hold on, just a little while longer.
We are those with sub-minimum wage jobs who can't afford sky-high rent.
People with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group.
It's crazy to me that in 2021, it's still legal for workplaces to pay a sub-minimum wage to people with disabilities.
There are still so much trial and tribulations that we go through as Indigenous people. We can't get a decent wage to sustain ourselves, nor can we get adequate housing.
Veterans across this nation say enough is enough. We can't pat essential workers on the back on one day and then cut their health care the next day.
Health is a political choice.
What more do I need to do to prove that my voice is just as valuable as anyone else's?
There are still forces in denial that would try to slow walk our transition to a clean economy and a just future for us all.
We have an immoral system run by immoral people.
But together we walk, and we walk and we fight.
It's time for a change. Reconstruyamos esta gran nación.
See, we are people of resilience. As we fight these interlocking injustices together,
when we work together, mobilize together, and rise together, we become a voice for the voiceless, and we become an agent of change in a time where great change is needed.
We need the third Reconstruction to ensure that deaf people, people with disabilities, and all people can have the right to live and to thrive.
We know what they are doing, but the question is, what are we going to do? Reconstruction begins when we change our mentality and say it's time for you to get your foot off of my neck.